Hello everybody and welcome to Zersey on the Luzern to Zersey line. Today we will be driving to Luzern, I don't know how it's pronounced. And yeah, I'm going to be discussing, as I have done a few times before, discussing some of my thoughts and new beliefs based on new stuff that we've seen for Train Sim World 4. Let's make sure the headlights are correctly set up. Gonna work? Oh, yes, maybe. We will turn ETCS on. We've just got to be a bit more careful. Headlights. How does one... Forgotten how the headlights work on this thing. It's not great. Will they magically work? No? Alright. Doesn't really matter. All good. Cruise control should be set at 40 kilometers an hour anyway, so no biggie there. So yes, what I'm going to talk about in this video, we're going to talk a bit about the editor and also about future DLC that I think is possible. Are you in ETCS mode? No, you're not. Oh, is that just because I spazzed you into into reverse and forwards? Oh, lovely. Come on. Right, go. Yeah, just got to be a bit careful with the ETCS as we get closer in because it's very buggy, but on the whole, I like driving with it. I like being as realistic as possible. So, yes, editor. In the 10 kilometers we have before the first station, I was quite impressed with the live stream. I mean, if I'm honest, I haven't found much of the current media for Train Sim World 4 engaging. It's pretty clear that I am not the target audience. But I did think that the editor was the best media yet, the best sort of publicity yet. Mostly because it's the thing I'm most looking forward to. But it wasn't a terrible stream. I mean, it was sort of the usual formula. Matt appeared pretty disinterested. And the other guys weren't super helpful. And they weren't really teaching you how to use it. So in some regards, it was slightly pointless. But yeah, it's better than the dev diaries, in my opinion. But yeah, it certainly was interesting. So I recommend you go watch bits of it if you have the time. Certainly, if not a tutorial, as a sort of a proof of concept or demonstrating what is possible within that 2-hour sequence. And one thing that I was particularly impressed with was the integrations and actually just how different the Train Sim World editor is to the standard Unreal editor. Like, there's automatic integrations with the LiDAR terrain and other terrain. Like, you just import the terrain and it automatically boots it up and you can set your textures straight out of the box. And I mean, I have no idea how the normal Unreal editor works, so it could be that aspect could work, but just how everything worked straight out of the box, and I was fairly impressed with that. And likewise, the props, you could just plop a prop in, and the tracks work pretty well. You could just, it's not splines, but you can set your own radius and all that stuff, which I thought was very nice. It's interesting to see what kind of integrations with geographical tools, like um, they have integrations with Google Earth, but you need to have a Google Earth API key, which they don't cost money per se, but you have to enter a credit card to make sure that you're not a bot. Which is slightly annoying, but something I'm going to have a look at. Otherwise, they claim that you can import stuff from OpenStreetMap and maybe other things. I can't quite remember, but certainly OpenStreetMap, Google Earth. I've heard mention of Google Maps, but I'm not sure about that. So if you're interested in making routes, it does seem like a reasonable tool, and it does seem like they're actually, it won't be quite as hard as it sounds. What does seem a little bit difficult, certainly, is modeling stations, because they said that to model stations, you can't just plop them down. You need to take them out and model them in Blender separately. So you need to basically custom make all of the assets for each of the stations and custom build them, which I was expecting to be able to custom build them, but I thought maybe that would be slightly easier and in the editor itself, rather than having to build each station separately and yada yada yada. And I also quite interested to see that the maps just work straight out of the box. I thought the maps and making the maps work would be a fair bit harder, sorry, than, you just, as soon as you put a track down, it automatically adds it to the appropriate map, which I thought was, certainly labour saving. Although, on second thoughts, how else would it have been done? But as well, I was quite impressed by the I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? What was I going to say? I was impressed by something. Oh yes, the setup, the sort of quote unquote coding and programming and whatnot. It's all basically Scratch, so that is fairly accessible, and I'm sure it will get very hairballed as you move into more complicated stuff. But it's not script coding; it's drag and drop block Scratch style coding. So if you're not used to writing in C or anything like that, then it'll certainly be slightly easier, if not a little bit more tedious. I believe that's called Blueprint, and that's an Unreal thing, not a Dovetail thing. This was interesting. One thing that I did discover, this is sort of a negative for Dovetail, is the volumetric fog, which they're never shut up about. Actually, it turns out that is just a standard feature on Unreal, and you can turn it on with more or less just a checkbox, and Unreal does it automatically. So they've almost done no work. Or from what I've heard from actual Unreal devs, it takes very little effort to get volumetric fog. So even more evidence that could have just very easily been rolled into Train Sim World 2. Even could have had that rolled into it. So yeah, slightly disappointing on that front, although I'm already incredibly disappointed by the game as a whole, so, can it get much worse? I don't know. As well, I keep reading on the forums people complaining, console kids complaining about not having access to the editor, and I've said this already. In fact, I believe I said this in my last discussion, but it is literally impossible for the editor to run on a console, because the editor is not inside the game. You don't boot the game and then have the editor there. The editor is a completely separate application. running on your system, and it just wouldn't work on console because it needs to be able to freely access the game files. You need to be able to freely access the game files, and you can't do that on console. So it's not possible. Or even if it was possible with an absolute metric arse ton of work, it would not be feasible, even by my own admission, right? And when I'm siding with Dovetail, you know something serious. But yeah, that's the brief version. What is slightly disappointing is the lack of integration into Creators Club, and it would appear that, for the moment, certainly, the way that console content will be distributed is just by people's own platforms. So, if you have a website, you can file share on that or share on Discord servers, but there's no native or vanilla, if you like, supported sharing platforms, which is also why console users can't use console stuff, because there's no way just to stick something in the game files, whereas if you're on PC, you could just download a doc pack from someone and stick it in your DLC folder and it would run. This might be an overshoot. Yep, it's not my finest work. It always happens. Nothing to see, nothing to see. Yeah, that's more or less all that I have to say about the editor. Because other than that, it's fairly standard. It's just, we'll wait and see. And I have mentioned previously that I plan to use it, and that is true. I do plan on using it. And I thought I'd share what routes I'm planning to do, just to see if anyone else is planning on doing the same, or potentially has access to resources that would be useful. And also, just so you know what I plan to work on. I was thinking something out of Epping to Ongar to start off with, because it's away from anything major. It's rural, forested, or semi-rural, and it's a steam railway, and we have steam trains. I can just plop a Fowler on it or something and call it a day. And I can easily scale it up because it's not a large route, but and there is our ETCS issues. No, what was I saying? Yeah. So Epping Ongar, I can start off with just 2 stations and then gradually expand it to the full route, which even then isn't very long. After that, I'm going to have a crack at something closer to home, in Sydney. Now that will require use of Blender, which I don't know how to use. I know my way around some 3D modeling software, but not to the sort of standards that I'd need for this sort of game development. And certainly I'm not planning on doing any kind of really top-notch 3D modeling, and I plan on trying to reuse assets as much as I can, where appropriate. But I do plan on, at least for some things, making my own stuff. And the biggest thing for that will be like signals, station signage, station assets, and then obviously the trains themselves. But someone in the comments previously did mention that they have access to models of Australian rail vehicles. If that's you, please join my Discord server, because I'd love to know more. But yeah, I'm going to try and reuse as much content as I can, or find other people's content where possible, just to make my life a bit easier, because if I have to use Blender, the results will be dog shit. But I do plan on, at least learning how it works. So that is, that is everything I have to say on the editor. Now, future DLC. I've already made an entire video on the Intercity 225, so I won't spend too long on that. But in short, the speed limit is 80, right? No, it's 90. Why does it say 80 then? I'll stick at 85. Yeah, so in short, Intercity 225, I reckon it'll come because it'll sell like hotcakes. Dovetail know that it's been super highly requested, and they would get some sweet cash off it. So that's an easy sell for them. Additionally, I reckon we'll see a railjet coming in the future, because they only really need to do the coaches. They already have a Taurus. In fact, they already have a Taurus layered onto Vorarlberg. I was very happy to see that, and I haven't mentioned it in a video before. The MRCE 182, or the ES64, whatever it's called, is coming to Vorarlberg as a layer with the intercity coaches, but you need to have Hamburg Lübeck and the BR 101 for that layer to work. Yeah, but that's certainly good. A good feature, a good layer. Nice to see a bit more variety. But they already have the 182, so they could just knock that in a new reskin. And maybe if there are some minor cab differences. And then it's just the coaches, more or less, that they have to make. But again, I think that would sell like hotcakes. Because, Austrian content and people are seeming to lose their ability to question things when it's a new country. And they already have access to the most complicated part, which is the loco. They've already have it. So yeah, I think pretty easy money for them. And, we've got a route for it now, Vorarlberg. It does run on those. And it would provide some express services, so it would broaden the timetable. And there's, lots of stuff they can market that for. And I reckon as well, there might be a Pacific Surfliner in the works. They did record the Pacific Surfliner. Now, I know, before one of you write in the comments, I know they just record everything that they can, regardless if they have plans to use it or not. And they had access to Amtrak equipment or Caltrans equipment, so they recorded it and took reference images. But it's a super highly requested route. They clearly have the ability to make routes in that area. We've had Cajon Pass, Antelope Valley now, so it's not out of the question for a Pacific Surfliner route. And we now have Metrolink stock that can later on. Speaking of Metrolink stock, I do think the MP36PH is coming, not least because Matt has sort of hinted at it. Not very subtly hinted at it. And also, the equipment already exists. Like, they have to do no work except put it in a new livery, and they're done. They already have the MP36PH from Baby Bullet. They already have the bi-level cars from Baby Bullet as well. So that's all cool. They've got that. And, it's virtually no work for free money. And as well, I reckon potentially a San Bernardino line could be in the works, because I know that is reasonably highly requested, and it's, again, certainly possible they can make stuff in that part of the world, and they have rolling stock for it. So potentially, and we already have parts of that line already. It is just a shame that we're not getting any Metrolink stock layering into San Bernardino on Cajon Pass. But likewise, it's a shame that we're not getting any 801s layering onto Edinburgh to Glasgow or under the Southeastern High Speed where it crosses the East Coast main line. But yeah. There's going to be someone in the comments who goes, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Or something ridiculous like that. I'm too tired to respond to that kind of comments. Not worth my time. Yeah, that was reasonably well timed, this video. We're approaching Luzerne. Cruising around this curve. And we have our dodgy instance of ETCS that just jumped 20 kilometers an hour. So you got to stay on top of it. It is a shame, these rivet routes, because they're generally reasonably well made. Like, this station isn't badly done, right? And the train isn't badly done. And this scenery, certainly here, it's not bad, really. It's just their shit is full of bugs that they never fix and has the most cursed sounds. I remember they had a publicity TikTok. I don't watch TikTok, but it just popped up on my YouTube Shorts feed, which I also don't normally watch, but I had a look at it because it was Train Sim World related, and it might be on the off chance that it was interesting and unseen information. But it was just like a picture, like a time lapse of them modelling the train with some shitty music underneath. And I remember I commented, oh, it's a shame you reused the sounds from the Talent 2, which they did. Like, this reuses the old shitty sounds from the Talent 2 from Rapid Transit, and I pointed that out, and they go, I don't know what you're talking about. And then all the other cuck boys are going, OMG, this is the best route! I can't wait for this route! So, okay, sure, I won't bother arguing. I used to think that these funky textures were incorrect, but I'm pretty sure these are the appropriate walking paths, so I think that is acceptable. But it is certainly unusual that we've got a semi-major station that's not awfully modelled and that is somewhat populated with stuff. You know, got the buses out the front and the concourse. Are we ever going to finish? Oh, we're early, okay. And then there's also the narrow gauge stuff, isn't there? Yeah, there's meter gauge tracks. I believe this is meter gauge. It's pretty cool. I wish we had more non-standard gauge stuff in this game. But like, there's a pretty large narrow gauge yard. And it does interface with the standard gauge stuff, which is pretty cool. Sort of like a Rosa line at Kur. And then we got the maintenance depot, which I don't think is really used apart from the tutorial. But it's nice that it's opened up, unlike the dovetail routes that are generally closed. And it's not a completely empty route either. It's like there's plenty of stuff coming and going. Like, we've only really just arrived, and there's something else behind us already. Are we waiting for something? Meant to close the doors? Is that it? No? Unlock. What do you want me to do? I hate this game. Yeah, this is Rivet being buggy. That's about it, I think. Talked for long enough. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Join the Discord server if you want. And I'll see you next time. Have a nice day. Goodbye.